Welcome back to my channel. I did my nails. Pretty color. I love them. Anyway, I'm back with another reading, but this is from another book. Just some information for the collective. Please, if this message resonates with you, give it a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. I'm always guided to put out information for the collective and to help them raise their consciousness and their awareness and to connect more with the Most High, the Divine, the Father of everything, of everyone. So here we go. God has made different religions to suit different aspirations, times, and countries. All doctrines are only so all doctrines are only so many paths, but a path is not by no means God Himself. Indeed, we can't reach God if we follow any of the paths with wholehearted devotion. Oh wait, let me just start by this. Okay, sorry. Okay. As you can imagine, the missionary pulled out all the stops. He wept and shuddered and shook and pleaded and implored and threatened hellfire and then evoked ecstatically all the joys of paradise. The old Indian sage listened quietly. When he had finished, said, I accept wholeheartedly, dear honored sir, that Jesus Christ was a very great divine master, whose life and teachings are of permanent sacred value of humanity. But the Buddha was also such a divine master, and so I might add, as my dear Swami Sri Ramakrishna. Why would God, after all, be so mean as to give humanity only one divine master, that one only for the white people? And the missionary flung up his hands in horror and fled the room. The sage in Xanar's story was, it seems, a disciple, the great 19th century Indian Saint Ramakrishna, and it was Zetner, in fact, who read to me the following passage, the Gospel of Ramakrishna, that enshrines the Sanatana Dharma's motherly embrace of all ways to the divine. God has made different religions to suit different aspirations, times, and country. All doctrines are only so many paths, but a path is by no means God Himself. Indeed, we reach God if we follow any of the paths with wholehearted devotion. One may eat a cake with icing, either straight or sideways. It will taste sweet either way. As we can ascend to the top of a house by the ladder, or bamboo, or a staircase, or a rope, so diverse are the way to reach God, and every religion shows one of these ways. People partition off their lands by means of boundaries, but no one can partition off the old embracing sky overhead. The indivisible sky surrounds all and includes all. So people in ignorance say, my religion is the one, the only one. My religion is the best. But when the heart is illumined by true knowledge, it knows that above all of these sects, the sectarians presides the one indivisible, eternal, all-knowing bliss. As a mother in nursing her sick children, give rice and curry to one, and sago and arrowroot to another, and bread and butter to a third. So the Lord has laid out different paths for different people. For all its tolerance and variety of faith and belief, however, there are certain essential beliefs and attitudes of spirit and bind together all those we call Hindus. Nearly all religion Hindus share a profound faith in rebirth and karma, in the cynical nature of time, in the transcendence and immanent presence of the divine, in the ultimately delusory, I don't know how to say that, sorry, and unsatisfactory nature of a life lived in ignorance of eternal truth, and in the supreme values of moksha, or liberations from all inner and outer limitations. Moreover, the different schools of Hinduism, while they may disagree even within themselves on such seemingly crucial issue as the nature of absolute reality, the status of individual self, and the reality of the world, all derive their authority from the most ancient body of texts, the Vedas, which contains not only the great hymns of Rig Veda, which begin my anthology, but also Upanishads, the multifaceted chord of Indian mysticism. While there is no one exclusive dogmatic Hindu tradition, then there is very definitely a spirit of inquiry and of revelation that is so consistent that we find one of the greatest and modern Hindu mystic, Ramana Maharishi, speaking in ways and with images that echo exactly the terminology of the anonymous seers who wrote down the Upanishads more than 2,000 years before him. It is this consistency that gives the Hindu mystical tradition its timeless purity, weight, and grandeurs. It is as if one eternal voice is speaking in and through a myriad different voices, tirelessly exploring different registers of its own majestic range, as if all the traditions, poems, and meditations and philosophical texts are, as Zechner once said to me, different shaped peaks in one vast, grand, interconnected mountain chain like the Himalayas. What I have wanted to do in this anthropology is to honor this consistency of vision and to present it in a way most relevant to all seekers on all paths today, and most prominent to the dangers and challenges facing our world. I wanted to create an anthology that would, in the spirit of Gita and Ramakrishna, inspire all readers, whatever their religion, background, or lack of it, to plunge into the uncovering of their internal nature and then interact its sacred laws in loving action in the world. As it is written in the Sahasrara Upanishad, what use are the scriptures to anyone who knows not the source from which they come? And as a yoga Vashist Vashista warns us, if you conceptualize these teachings for your intellectual entertainment and do not let them act in your life, you will stumble and fall like a blind person. For all this mystical, metaphysical loftiness and joy in the speculation that Hindu mystical tradition, like all true mystical traditions, is essentially practical, concerned with teachings, inspiring and guiding authentic transformation. Whatever path you are on, then use these texts not as intellectual puzzles, but as a sign of your essential splendor. Pray, meditate, and serve others so that the worldless truth behind these truths can be revealed to you in your life. What then is the core of the Hindu tradition? It is the truth of the mystery of a spirit that pervades, creates, and transcends all things, and of each soul, conscious identity with it beyond space and time. In the Upanishads, this all-pervading, all-creating, all-transcending spirit is named Brahma. In parts of the earlier Vedas, Brahman, from the Sanskrit, to become or breathe, and birth, to be great, means that which is powerful and great, and most often refers to the force inherent in sacred hymns and sacrifices. In the Upanishad, this concept widens, and Brahman becomes the presence underlining, creating, sustaining all of existence. For the Upanishads and all the later teachings rooted in them, every human being is naturally one with Brahman and his or her Adam, his or her soul or dwelling core of divine consciousness. The aim of human life and the source of liberation from all the chains of life and death is to know from the inmost experience the Atman identity with Brahman, and to live the calm, fearless, selflessly loving life that radiates from this knowledge. There was a danger inherent in the tradition's celebration of the transcendent Brahman and a freedom from the world, the danger of what might be called an addiction to transcendence, and a corresponding subtle but devastating devaluation of creation and life as unreal. Many developments of the Hindu tradition did not escape this danger, but it is important to recognize that it was recognized and dealt with at the very beginning of the tradition's unfolding, both with the Vedas, with their celebrations of the glory of the creation, and the crucial and exalted statement of the necessities of sacred balance between eminence and transcendence, being and becoming, contemplative awareness, and just action that we discover in the Isha Upanishad. In dark night live those for whom the world without alone is real. In night, darker still, for whom the world within alone is real. The first leads to a life of action, the second to a life of meditation. But those who combine action and meditation cross the sea of death through action and enter into immortality. Through the practice of meditation, so have we heard from the wise. It was this mature and practical sacred balance between transcendence and eminence, meditation and service, that the Bhagavad Gita, composed several centuries after the Upanishad, brought to a marvelous depth of richness in its central vision of selfless actions. In the Gita, Lord Krishna teaches his disciples Arjuna the timeless secrets of an action inspired by divine will, wisdom, love, and knowledge, performed for its own sake and without attachment to results. Only such action, Krishna tells Arjuna, can free a person from the chains of karma and also allow the divine to use him or her for its own purpose without any interference of the false self, and so secure the triumph of sacred law and justice in history. Many modern mystics, I am one of them, believe that it is such a vision of selfless action that can most richly inspire the kind of mystical activism that is necessary in all arenas if we are going to preserve the planet. Activism without mystical inspiration and strength, stamina, and passion that springs from divine love and divine knowledge will inevitably cause us to grow jaded and despairing in the bitter, fierce world of reality. Mysticism without a commitment to enhancing justice and truth in life will degenerate into what Gandhi called the higher narcissism, and what Vivekananda derided as heartless escapism, masquerading as illumination. Krishna revelation to Arjuna, then to a midway that fuses the deepest insights of contemplation with tireless service to the divine and the real, may well hold the secrets to our survival as a race and to the survival of the natural world. Lord Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita also suggested another holy secret that has inspired some of the greatest mystics of the Hindu tradition. Simply stated, the human being only achieves union with God in all of his aspects through a fusion of contemplation and action. God is, after all, both eternal being and eternal becoming. In contemplative knowledge of our eternal identity with Brahman, when we rest in God's being, like a drop of water in all surrounding oceans, in acting the divine will selflessly, we participate in the transforming activity of God. And what a great mystic of another tradition, Rami, called God's perpetual massive resurrection. Both aspects of the Godhead then are open to us to taste, savor, celebrate, and enshrine. And life itself is the dancing ground of its divine human dance of opposites, the site of a perpetually evolving sacred marriage between matter and spirit, whose potential possibilities and glories are boundless. What could a humanity attuned intimately to the divine and selflessly transparent to its will not achieve? The Hindu tradition provides exquisite, firm guidance towards this attunement because it has always recognized that different temperaments take different paths into sacred marriage. It has not only recognized the validity of other religions It does not only recognizes the validity of other religion, but also acknowledges within itself a variety of paths. Of these, the four main ways to yoga union with God are Arjuna Yoga, the path to the transcendent through intuitive knowledge; Bhakti Yoga, which accuses the powers of imaginations and passion on a path of devotion, usually to a personal God; Raha Yoga, the path of royal integration through psychophysical exercises; and Karma Yoga, the path of work and action dedicated selflessly to the Supreme. None of these yoga includes the practice of any of the others. Each temperament, however, finds in one another of the path its own door into experience of the living presence most natural to it. And as this experience deepens, the chosen path opens to the realization of all the other paths and gradually fuses with them to birth a mature divine human being. No other mystical tradition has had so broad and wise and all-embracing a vision of the different aspects and phases of the path. Robin Zedner used to say, if anyone feels excluded from the Hindu embrace, it is by his or her own perverse choice. In this anthology, I have chosen to emphasize, but by no means exclusively, the sacred texts devoted to Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotions or adorations. Sari Ramakrishna, never tired of repeating the Bhakti Yoga, is the path suited for the most people, the easiest to keep performing in the heart of the world, and the yoga most apt for this dark age when religious culture is everywhere in decline and the exigencies of work make the time for more elaborate spiritual exercises hard to secure. Bhakti Yoga, of course, opens on to all the other yogas. As Ramakrishna said, the more you love, the more you know, the more you love and know, the more deeply you plunge into sacred action born from love and knowledge. The greatest bhakti river of Hindu mysticism has its origins in the Vedas, where many gods, all of them different aspects of the One, are celebrated. In its most identifiable modern form, however, it began around the 4th century BCE, when several religion groups made their appearance worshiping a supreme god in his personal aspects as Vasudeva, Narayana, or Hari. Later, all three would be identified as Vishnu. During the next 2,000 years, other streams of devotions to Shiva, god of destruction and renewal, to the goddess of all of her different forms and names, and to Krishna, an embodiment of Vishnu, whose devotion began to flourish in the 6th century, also joined this vast river. It is vital to remember, however, that despite this plural of divine names and forms and objects of adorations, Hinduism is not polyetheics. The different gods each represents different aspects of the Supreme. As Houston Smith writes in his World Religions, it is obtuse to confuse Hinduism images with idolatry and their multiplicity with polytheism. There are runways from which the sense-laden human spirits can rise for its flight of the alone to the alone. In traditional Hindu metaphysics, Brahman is recognized as having two faces. The Nirguna Brahman of many of the earliest Upashihats, the self without qualities and beyond all concepts and forms, and Saguna Brahman, the spirit as form or forms with qualities that can be approached and adored. In practice, many Hindu mystics move between these two aspects of the Absolute with natural delight. Even Asotre, a lover of the Nirguna Brahman, and Shankara, the great philosopher of non-dual Vedanta, who wrote ecstatic devotion hymns to the Saguna Brahman as Shiva or the Divine Mother, and Ramakrishna, in the course of a single discourse, can veer between the formless Absolute and the Mother and back again, knowing their identity in the mystery that transcends all names and concepts. The face the divine wears in the Bhakti traditions always has the majesty of the formless in and behind it. When baby Krishna foster mother Yashoda looks into his mouth after scolding him for eating mud, she sees the whole universe blaze in divine fire. The glory of the Bhakti tradition in Madhibai hymns to Krishna as the, I don't know how to say these words, Mahadevika, I don't know how to say this, sorry, to Shiva, and Ramprashats to the mother lies in its fierce emotional courage and passion. As the French thinker Simone Weil remarked to an atheist philosopher who was mocking the erotic language of certain Christian mystics and of the biblical song of songs. The language of love belongs to mystics by right, and other kinds of lovers merely borrowed it. That God is love, eternal, boundless, fiery, ecstatic love is known and experienced by mystics of all traditions. It is this love that is the energy and force that creates and sustains all things and worlds. In the Bhakti tradition, the language of love, that such a love inevitably arouses in its passion devotees, is explored in all its nuisances of coquetry, agony, longing, and sometimes even molten rage at divine cruelty, in shamelessly exposing all possible response to the divine image as friend, mentor, mother, child, and especially lover. The Bhakti tradition helps all seekers of all paths to dedicate the full range, passion, and power of their emotions to God, and so enter into a nakedly intense personal relationship with the divine. Madhibai Mahadetivika I can't even pronounce these words, sorry. and the other great poets of the Bhakti tradition brings their entire tumultuous complex self to encounter with the beloved sensory nothing and leaving out no parts of their being. Their huge pain and ecstasies challenge us to expose ourselves also to the irritations of love, and its often ferocious alchemy. For those who find the Negra Braham too cold an object to pursue, adoring God in form is marvelously powerful way of keeping the whole being in the curable of transformation until all its ignorance and folly are burnt away and a new being is ultimately forged in gold from the ashes of the old. As its crowning grace, adorations reveal the whole of creation as a non-dual, interdependent dancing ground of love. As the bold poet Ferguson sings so movingly, if I look at the clouds in the sky, I see his beautiful afloat, and I see him walk on the stars, blazing my heart. This revelation of all being, things, and events being swept up in an infinite, interconnected, non-dual dance of bliss, consciousness, source, and the second great stream of Hindu mysticism I have chosen to celebrate in his anthology, that of the Tantric tradition. The word Tantra is derived from the Sanskrit tan, to stretch and expand. Tantric signifies that by which knowledge and consciousness are stretched and expanded so that the full sublime passion and power and wisdom of the dance can infuse and imagine them. The Tantric tradition is reflected in Janeshwar hymn to self-awareness, the Devi Gita, Kabir, the songs of the mystics, minstrels, known as the Baal, and the experts from the works of Ramakrishna and Aurobindo. I don't know how to say these words, sorry. The magnificent tradition first made literally appearance forward in the middle of the first millennium CE. From the beginning, it celebrated its enormous fever, the feminine aspect of the Godhead, and the Shakti, the fire energy that streams from the source of engender, the creation, and lived in it. By honoring the Shakti, the Tantric devotee would make himself or herself open to her transforming power and to all the healing revelations of her presence in and as all things and beings. The great Tantric formula, fundamental also the Mahayana Buddhism, is samsara equals nirvana, which reveals that the world and the creation of all their holy particulars are coextensial with the transcendent being consciousness bliss. Everything in its inherited bliss nature is divine and holy. There is nothing but God in us and around us all the time. For the Tantric school, mushka, or liberation does not come from renouncing reality, leaving the world, or killing one's natural desires, Rather, true freedom arises naturally and subtu- and subconsciously. Sorry, when that has been characterized as the lower reality is seen and unknown and known as contained within and always melting into the higher, and when the higher is constantly evoked to penetrate, to transfigure the lower at the ever great depth of power, presence, and rapture. The tantric mystic, the entire universe is the site of a constantly consummated, explosively and boundlessly fertile sacred marriage between the transcendent source and his immanent Shakti, between the self and the self matter and spirit. For the tantric, the aim of human existence is to participate in this dynamic marriage and to make all aspects of life radiant with its holy truth and joy. I'm just going to leave it there. And then I'm going to continue. It's a very interesting story and it's a revelation of what is going on within my spiritual journey, so I could understand different parts of different cultures as they relate to the spirituality and the creator, the one creator of all, which is all names for all different religions, but it's just the same God. And God, all these names of him had to happen so that way they could. It's a universal love, a universal for one God, one love. We just had to release from the material world and connect with him. I don't know. This is the dance of what is above, so is below. To be a mystic is to be very powerful and to be very much more in tune and connected to everything and everyone, especially the Father. That's the one heart that beats within us. The Creator. He's in everyone. Namaste.